Hello, welcome back for another installment in this series, one verse a week. This week we're doing Parshat Mikeitz. This corresponds in your Bibles to Genesis chapter 41 through 44:17. This is for the Jewish reading cycle for the year 5779. If you found these videos to be of interest, to be of use to you, I wish you'd consider subscribing to the channel. If you feel that this project or any of my other projects are worthy of your support, you can follow the links below in the description to my PayPal account or to my Patreon page. All contributions are greatly appreciated. Okay, so let us get to the material. Okay, 42:25, Genesis 42:25 is the verse that we're doing this week. Of course, we're in the sort of the second installment of the Joseph cycle. It's the longest set of narrative in the book of Genesis. Okay, let's read it through a couple times. V'yetzav Yosef v'yamalu es et kleihem bar u lahashiv kaspeihem ish el sako ulatet lehem tzeda laderech v'yas lehem kain. One more time. I apologize. My Ashkenazis is getting in the way, so I am trying to whatever. Okay, let's go one more time. V'yetzav Yosef v'yamalu et kleihem bar u lahashiv kaspeihem ish el sako v'latet lehem tzeda laderech v'yas lehem kain. Okay, so let's break down some of the vocabulary. So as always, we're going to look at the nouns, things like this first, because they are subject to less change, so they're more easily remembered. Okay, so let's go over here. So the first one we're going to do here is kli, or kalim. Kalim is the word vessels. Kleihem is their vessels. Hem is the pronoun suffix possessive for them. So kleihem means their vessels. Okay, bar. This means grain. Bar means grain. There's a homophone of bar, which also means purity, but here it means grain. There's an Aramaic homophone, bar, which you've perhaps heard, which means son, like for instance, bar mitzvah. But that is in smichut form. It would be son of something, like a bar mitzvah, son of the commandment. So anyway, that's Arabic. It's a different language. Aramaic. Sometimes you see Aramaic in Jewish texts, but you pretty much don't see it in pure Hebrew texts, except for in a few of the later books of the Bible. Okay. Bar, grain. Kesef, silver or money. And it's many times just translated as money because basically silver was the basic currency in those days. So silver and money, kesef. Ish, man. Lahem, to or for them. Lamed is to or for. Ham, la, to for. Ham, them. Lahem means to or for them. Okay, tzeda. Tzeda means provisions. Provisions, supplies, namely food. Derech means road, way, or path. Finally, Cain, yes, thus, or so, and depending on context, you'll have to figure out which of these definitions to apply. Okay, finally, we have a word, sack. Sock. Sock is sack. So this is one of these rare instances in which a word has come down to us etymologically not changed very much at all. Sack. So it has, as this little infographic shows, it has Semitic origins. It comes down to us through Phoenician, no doubt, into the Greek, which was called sakos, and into the Latin sakus, and then Old English sack, of course, gives us our modern term sack. So if anything, it's come full circle. The modern version looks more like the original version than sort of these intermediate versions of the word. So sack. Now, literally what this means is what we think of as sackcloth. This is the rough fabric bags that they would have carried stuff in, roughly equivalent to burlap or some sort of material like that. Just rough fabric. Wearing sackcloth is a sign of mourning or fasting. You're afflicting your body. So it's used in that context also of donning sackcloth. But here in this passage, it literally is a sack. Okay, so let's go back to the Hebrew and look at it a little bit. V'yetzav Yosef. Okay, Yosef we know is Joseph. V'yetzav Yosef, so Yosef did something. V'yamalu, and he did something. Es klehem, es is direct object. Remember, I told you look for the et. So the et tells us it's a direct object. So he did something to their vessels. Bar, with grain. He did something to their vessels of grain. Ulahashiv kaspehem. This is their silver or their money. Did something there. Ish, man. El we've done before, means two. Sako, we have sack. And we have the vav ending, which is the pronounal possessive for his. So ish el sako, that means each man hit to his sack. To his sack. Okay? Latet, velatet. Lahem, and to do something, lahem, to or for them. Tzeda, provisions, la, to or for. Darech, the way. Tzeda la darech, provisions for the way. Basically traveling food. V'yas lahem, and something lahem, we already had that previously, lahem, something for them or to them. Cain. Here we're going to translate it as thus. Thus. Okay, when we put it all together, you'll see that's the context. Okay, let's look at the verbs. The sort of the other half of this sentence. This has a pretty good many verbs in it. V'yetzav. Okay, this tzav comes from the root tzadi vav hey, which means command, like the word mitzvah, commandment. So v'yetzav, this is the yud turns it into the future tense. He commanded, and this vav, the vav hippo, reverses it and turns it into the past tense. V'yetzav, and he commanded. Who commanded? Yosef. So Yosef commanded. V'yamalu. Okay, here's the shorish, the root mem lamed aleph. That means to fill. V'yamalu. Basically, he commanded. Basically, he told them So he's commanding. What did he command? B'yamalu, that they should fill. Et kleihem. Fill what? Direct object. Et kleihem. Their vessels. What should they fill with? Bar. Grain. So V'yitzav Yosef commanded. B'yamalu. Et kleihem. What did he command? That they should fill up their vessels. Bar. With grain. Okay, that's the first little bit. Ulahashiv kaspehem, and to hashiv comes from the word the shorish shin vav vet shuv, to return. Ulahashiv, and to return. Kaspehem, their kesef, their money. Ish el sako, each man, ish, el sako, to his sack, right? Velatet, believe it or not, comes from the shorish nun, tav, nun, natan, means to give. Velatet, and to give. Incidentally, this is where the name Natan comes from, or Nathan. Okay, or in Ashkenaz, Nasan. It's also my middle name, Nasan. Okay, v'latet lahem, and to give to them. Seda ladarach, to give to them food for the way, or provisions for the way. V'yas comes from the shorish ein sin hey. I'm missing my dot here, but that's a sin. Ein sin hey. Asa means do or make. Ula v'yas, and he did for the v'yas, and he did lahem, for them, Cain, thusly. Or you could in translation move it over here and say, and thus he did for them. And thus he did for them. Okay, so let's put it together. V'yitzav Yosef, and Yosef commanded, V'yamalu et kleihem, and what did he command? And they should fill their vessels, bar, with grain. Ula hashiv kaspehem, and to return their silver or their money. Ish el sako, each man to his sack. V'latet, and to give lahim, for them. Seda ladarach, provisions for the way, provisions for the road. V'yas lahim Cain, and thus he did for them. V'yas lahem Cain. And Cain, thus, ya'as lahem, he did for them. Okay? Okay, let's go look at my translation just in the English. I'm not even sure that it's the same translation I gave you, so let's see. And Yosef commanded. That doesn't make sense. Let's go back and see the Hebrew real quick. Let's take that out. Very good. Real time it. And Yosef commanded that they should fill their vessels with grain, and to return their silver to each man's sack, and to give them provisions for the journey. And he did so for them. Or you could say, and thus he did for them. Either way, we have to basically, to make it an intelligible sentence, in English we have to rearrange that sentence. Okay, let's go and see what other translations do with it. King James. Then Joseph commanded to fill their sack with corn. Okay, corn in the old days just meant grain. and to restore every man's money into his sack. Okay, kesef here could mean money or silver, and to give them provisions for the way. Okay, and thus did he unto them. Okay, so KJV puts the Cain, it's at the end of the verse, at the beginning of the verse, and they call that's the end of the sentence. The NIV, Joseph gave orders to fill their bags with grain. Okay, it's I would just say Joseph commanded. It's not they're putting new nouns in a sentence that aren't in the original Hebrew, but okay. What did he command? Also to put each man's silver back in his sack. Okay, that's not bad. And to give them provisions for their journey. Not bad. After this was done for them, comma. So they turn this into a whole new sentence and link it to the next verse, where the original Hebrew it's its own sentence. So I don't know why they do this, but it doesn't really make sense in the Hebrew. They want to connect this to the next verse. But after this was done, the word after is not there at all. The word after in Hebrew is achar. And let's go back to the Hebrew. And it says, V'yas lehem Cain. And he did for them thusly. And he did for them thusly. So there's no after there at all. They are introducing words into the translation that are not in the text. And this was done for them. Okay, fine. NRSV, Joseph then gave orders to fill their bags with grain. Okay, then I don't know exactly why they introduced that. I guess just to link it to the overall narrative. It's not in the Hebrew. Joseph then gave orders to fill their bags with grain, to return every man's money to his sack. Okay, and to give them provisions. And to give them provisions for their journey. Okay, this was done for them. Okay, they also turn the verb, make the verb a little wonky here. The verb here, if you look, is v'ya'as, and he did. This is the pronoun prefix for he. It's future tense. V'ya'as, ya'as, he shall do. The vav flips it. It's a vav ahipuk. It flips it to the past tense. V'ya'as, and he did. Lehem, for them, Cain, thusly. In RSV, this was done for them. Who did it? Whatever. They changed the nature of the sentence. Okay, JPS. Then Joseph gave orders to fill their bags with grain. Okay, then again, I don't know where it comes from. It's not really in the sentence, but it's not a huge quibble. Bags, doesn't have to be bags. It just says that they're vessels. They're klayim. So it could have been any form of generic vessel. Likely was bags. I'm not really sure what the difference between a bag and a sack is, but whatever the case, klayim just means generically vessels. So Joseph gave orders to fill their bags with grain, return each one's money to his sack, not bad, and to give them provisions for their journey. Okay, and this was done for them. This, I guess, means Cain, like thus, and thus was done for them. This was done for them. So they choose to take the Cain from the end of the sentence and put it at the beginning of the sentence. I did it in the middle. You could have done it in the end also thusly, but that was clunky. I guess whenever I translated mine, I did not, and he did so for them. He did thusly for them. I could have said, and he did for them thusly. That would have been equally viable. Okay. Translation is not an exact science, especially when you have sentence orders that are as fluid as they are in Hebrew, and as fairly rigid as they are in English. Sometimes you have to play with the words to make them sound right. Okay, the stone, the art scroll. Joseph commanded that they fill their vessels with grain. Okay? And to return their money, each one's to his sack. Okay, that's good. And to give them provisions for the journey. Okay, that's good. And so he did for them. So they take the cane, the so or the thus, and bring it over here. And thus he did for them. So they just rearrange the sentence, but again, that sentence needs to be rearranged to sound like normative English. So it is fine what they did. Overall, let's see. So it looks like, well, here, I don't like this sacks and sack. Here we have the word sack. In the KJV, it's sack. And then sort of here, what they use for sacks is klayim, which is just generically their vessels. But okay, it's a small quibbling point. But overall, I think the KJV and the stone are the best translations of the bunch. Okay, yeah, at some point I picked these translations because to my mind they're fairly representative of the various translating schools and various religious groups that use the Bible. At some point in the future I may switch them up and pick other translations to play around with and to compare. But for now, this is what we're sticking with. Okay, very good. This was, again, for Genesis 41, 44, verse 17. Okay, I hope you benefited from that. I wish you the best. Kol Tuv, Hatzlacha Rabba. Keep learning.